Hello, hello, namaste, guru.
Namaste, namaste, Guru. What's going on?
Not much. We're on the eve of the Lord's Test match. I think underratedly a huge deal because this actually only happens once every 4 years. And, as much as I like to give England a hard time, does have a little bit of extra, the Lord's Test. What say you?
Yep, yeah, not feeling good. Heading into this third test, huge win up there in Birmingham. Finally broke the curse there. So the vibes are high. Bumrah's back. Archer's back for them after a long wait and stuff. But I'm very excited. I saw that only I think 3 out of 19 tests we've won at Lords, so it's a pretty tough record there too. So it'd be nice to be able to break that other streak too. So riding high on this momentum, and even with the short layoff, I'm hoping it can carry over um, into tomorrow and for these next 5 days.
Me too. Welcome to the third Test match preview show. Um, Dude, before we get into the actual match, I gotta ask, do you like when people call it the home of cricket?
Yeah, I've thought about this for a while. I mean, I don't, but at the same time, I understand why because it's England and obviously the history of cricket. I get it. And Lords is Lords. It kind of gets that you know Madison Square Garden, Lambeau Field type of treatment. So I don't agree with it personally. I think there's better venues and also I think the whole walk in and the setup and things like that make it kind of different. So I think that also adds to it the allure of it, quote unquote, and the balconies too, and the way that's set up. But overall, I would say I don't like it, but at the same time, I understand. But that's just how I feel. But that's a question I've thought about for a while.
Dude, I hate it. I don't like
Hate
it.
it.
I think it's like such a pompous label from a pompous cricketing nation. I I think that you can hate the label of home of cricket while also acknowledging it's an amazing venue. And that's where I stand. It's like really unique. The walk, everybody shows the walk into and out of the dressing room when a batsman's walking out to bat. Um, terms like the slope, and that causes a lot of sea movement on the pitch. The balcony, like you said, Saurav Ganguly, like a lot of crazy moments have happened on the balcony. It's definitely a very unique venue. It's such a lore and charm to it, but you cannot claim anything as the home of cricket, in my opinion, when it's such a worldwide game now. And I agree. I think there's like so many better venues out there, or at least comparable venues, that label just really irritates me. And more of the reason why I really want this victory. And it's a really big test match. The stage is set. So let's get into the combinations here. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So this is going to be a little bit of a tough one here, but I pulled up the team sheet and I put the players I think that are in question on the right. So
Okay.
I want you to make the team with me. We'll go down the list here. Jaiswal, Rahul, we're not touching.
Yep.
So Karun Nair is the one spot that has been questioned a little bit. Are you sticking with him or are you giving someone else a shot? Ishwaran, Dhruv Jurel, back to Sai Sudarshan, any of those?
Um, for me, I'm sticking with Coronaire. I think his form hasn't been great recently, but I think the other guys there are just too unproven overall. Where in a test match like this, in a series like this, I think it'd be too risky to stray away from it. Where Coronaire, he's been he hasn't been scoring, half centuries or centuries or anything like that, but he's been putting some runs on the board. Maybe that's a way of coping with it, but I think of the options that are relatively limited for that number three spot, I think he's still the best one personally.
I totally agree. And to your point, he's gotten starts. I think it's just a question of getting past the 30s. Plus, another underrated fact is that he's an amazing slip catcher, man. Like we
That, yeah,
can't we
true.
can't have drops like we saw in the first test. And
Yep.
so if it's close, like I want him in that slip court. And he's taken 4 or 5 catches. It's very important, especially if they're going to spice up the pitch a little.
Great point. Yep. 100%.
So, well, I agree. We're going to stick with Qatar. Obviously, Gill and Punt are unchanged. Here's where it gets interesting. So, Jardu is going to be at 7.
Mhm.
What are you going to do at 6 and 8? Are you going to stay with NKR and Sundar? Are you going to bring in Shardul Thakur, who's a very popular guy in our group chat? Are you going to bring in Kuldeep Yadav for one of these spots? A fourth seamer, possibly. Either Arshdeep or again Prasid, given what they're saying the pitch could have in terms of helping the fast bowlers. What are you doing here?
Yeah, so this is tricky. I think I would go NKR there, and then I would go obviously Jardu 7, and then I would bring in Arshdeep. I think
Whoa.
I know it's a risk. I understand he has little to no test match experience. I get it, but I think his height, his swing at Lords, I think this will be more traditional English test than what we've seen, and more of like a, I guess, green pitch, if you will, more swing, seam movement, etc., than what we saw in the first two tests. And I think he could really play a big factor in that. So I would roll the dice and I would go Arshdeep.
Even though if we do pick Arshdeep, it would be Arshdeep, Burma, Deep, Siraj, last 4 wickets for the batting.
Yes, and
Hmm.
I that so that's why, yeah, that's also is what makes it a gamble. But I think I feel confident overall about our top seven, where they'll just have to score a lot. Where I don't know if the difference between, let's say, Washington Sundar and Arshdeep's batting is as valuable as what Arshdeep could provide as a four seamer. So
Interesting.
that's why I would take the chance there and
That's
roll
a
with it.
very that's a very bold selection. I'm not disagreeing, especially with what we're reading that the pitch is going to be like. Last couple Lords tests, it's been help for the fast bowlers galore.
Yep.
So you're saying NKR at 6, Arshdeep at 8. If I was the selectors, Gambhir and Gill, I would I would bring back Shardul Thakur.
Laura Thakur. Okay.
Not because I believe in his bowling, but I believe that the pitch will help his bowling where he can make a contribution with the ball that will justify his selection while also lengthening the batting. So I would play Shardul at number 8. And at number 6, that's a really tricky one for me because you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clear bowling options, and you have 3.5 seamers. So I don't think you need another bowling option. And here you could play a specialist batter. You could play Dhruv Jurel. You could play even Sai Sudarshan. Um, you could play NKR. I think it would be insanely harsh to drop NKR after just the one test, and I believe in his batting. So I'm putting him in my side strictly because of his batting. I'm not relying on his bowling at all, but it's a nice fallback to have in case like one of the other guys are getting tonked. One of the three main guys are getting tonked, or we just need to buy a few overs and we're trying to limit Bumrah's workload, something like that. So because of the way the pitch is sounding, I want two half seamers, basically, NKR and Thakur. That I don't think that shortens the batting at all. It gives us excess bowling options. Um, and I think the balance, even though it feels like a T20 team, it worked in the last test. So I would stick with that type of combination. I don't think the pitch is going to help spin at all. And I've been a big proponent of trying to get Kuldeep Yadav in there, but I don't think this is the test for him. I think that later on, when we get to Manchester, those are the wickets that are more traditionally spin friendly later in the test in England. So I would, you know, NKR, Shardul, Jardu, 6, 7, 8. You're saying instead of Shardul, you go full on bowling with Arshdeep.
Yep.
So I'll
Heavy
put
fast play.
I'll put Arshdeep here as that's our like official prediction. But the team selection has been really difficult to call this series. So we'll see what they go with. Um, no matter who they pick, I feel good about the rest of the eight that are cemented in there. Let's go transition to the England team now. One change for them, they already announced. Archer comes in, Josh Tongue goes out. I must admit, I make fun of Archer in white ball, but I do have a healthy fear for him in red ball. Does this change the outlook that you have on this test? And does it change the outlook of the series for you? Because this is a big deal that he's returning.
True. So I would say yes for this test match, and then I would say no overall in the big picture for the series because of where this match is being played and the fact that even though it was 4 or 5 years ago, I mean, the way he had bowled against Australia, just bouncer after bouncer, great ball after great ball. And again, it was half a decade ago, had a bunch of injury problems since, but he's back. And I really think for this test match, especially in these conditions, it can make a real difference. And I'm a little worried that all of our batsmen, or at least some of them, will have a tough time, especially if they're inexperienced. Dealing with just the sheer pace and bounce that Jofra provides, as opposed to Tongue or Cars was still in the team, etc. Well, even Wokes is a veteran, but a different type of bowler overall. But I just think he adds a different element to their team, especially their bowling attack that they just didn't have. I'm not saying we're going to lose the series or anything like that, but I definitely think this is a noteworthy change, and that how Archer plays will have a pretty monumental impact on who wins this match.
That last part is what I think. Yes, it's a noteworthy change, and it's a toss up. It's not like Archer's back, and I'm like, oh my God, we're gonna lose this test, we're gonna lose this series. He is probably undercooked. He hasn't had much bowling at all in the last year, 2 years. Seems like he's hurt pretty frequently. The other thing is, I feel like if he has a bad spell, he drops his head and then he gets frustrated easily. And he's a bowler that can go from bad to worse quickly, but he's also a bowler that if he gets a few wickets under his belt, he can be a real handful. So it's a high ceiling but low floor change. It's a change England had to make, given how we batted the last test. And if the pitch is helpful, I'm more cautious of my confidence for the next test. But I don't think it changes my outlook for the series overall. I still think it's a pretty evenly matched series, despite his inclusion. Let's move on to some fun stats here. So first, I did a deep dive into our record against England in test matches. They have the upper hand.
Okay,
Overall, they've won 52. We've won 36. There's been 50 draws. Wow, that's crazy.
that's a lot of
It-
trust.
in India, un unsurprisingly, we have the edge. In England, they have a significant edge, 37 to 10.
Wow.
But this is what I found interesting. So it's not like a blip anymore in terms of us turning the tide in England. The last seven tests that we've played, dating back to 2021, we have three wins. They have three wins. There's been one draw. And this goes back to the 2021 tour that was marred by COVID, where we were up 2-1. Then we came back and we played the fifth test 1 year later. We lost that one. And that includes these two tests this year. That's a long time. That's like almost three separate tours. And we've played them pretty evenly. Then you look at where we're playing next, Lords. Yes, like you said, England have won 12 out of the 19 matches there. We've only won three. There's been four draws. But if you look at the last three, we have two wins, and they only have one. So these last three here lead me to have a lot of optimism for this upcoming test. So what do you think?
Yeah, no, those are some interesting numbers you cooked up there, and I would say especially for those recent test matches and Lords, especially with how it plays into today. I think because of ironically how those or unironically how those last two tests that we won went. I would say it was the 2014 Ishan Sharma, that famous test. I think he took 7 wickets, and then 2021 Siraj, and and Bumrah. That's part of the reason why for me I went with Arshdeep because I figured that with
Ah,
it kind of connected where that having that precedent in front of us allows for us to have more fast bowling options and gives us overall just a greater chance of winning, even if our batting lineup is diminished. Because I do think, as we talked about, the scores are going to be lower and um, centuries, half centuries, double hundreds, anything like that are going to be limited, or we're just not going to see that many 100+ scores overall. And so I think those are some, yeah, pretty interesting numbers. And that's especially with those numbers, I'm fascinated to see what decisions we make um, with the team coming into tomorrow. So, um,
good
yeah.
point.
And so hopefully we can continue, obviously, the brilliance from 2021 where it looked like we were about to lose the match, but then I think they only had to chase 270, but then Siraj went absolutely nuclear on that last day, and we were able to bowl them out with what was it, 7 or 8 overs left, something like that. But I still remember grabbing the stumps, etc.
Yep.
Um, Great stuff, and that's the picture in the
Yep.
background. Yeah. So hopefully we can continue that.
Interesting thing I think is if you look at the overall record in England, it looks terrible. It is terrible, 37 to 10, 22 draws. But if you just look at the recent past, it looks way, way better. So I think that, recent history matters a lot more. We used to go to England back in the day and just get absolutely crushed. It was much different team back then. We were much worse overseas, test nation. So I'm very encouraged by these last three columns. Speaking of being encouraged, I think this deserves an actual like tracker, like Shubman Gill watch. We need to make this a thing because he is going absolutely bonkers this series. He's averaging 146. He has 585 runs through through two tests so far, with three tests remaining. And in those three tests, I say only, but he only needs less than 200 runs to catch Sunil Gavaskar for the most runs ever scored in a test match series by an Indian. So we are at, what is that, 585, 685, 785, 189 plus one, 190 more runs Shubman Gill needs to break Gavaskar's record. And he needs 390 runs to go past Bradman for the most test runs in a series ever. I think he can do it. What do you think?
Yeah, I also think he can do it too. I mean, obviously, shout out to Shubman Gill. He's been unbelievable this series. Coming in, people, there was a lot of talent, a lot of promise, but we didn't know how it was going to be, especially, you know, inexperienced test batsman in England, etc. Blah blah blah. I remember on the first podcast, you and Oja Uncle talked about Kohli. First time out, 2014 struggled. Obviously bounced back in 2018, but you thought there would be some growing pains there, and you could attribute some of it to the pitch, but overall, I mean, what he did, especially in that second Test match, 269. I mean, just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, and then followed it up again in the second innings with however many runs he scored, 100 plus. I don't even remember at this point, but he's just boundary after boundary, just taking it to the bowlers. And it's, yeah, these two records for Gilwatch, as well as there are like 6 or 7 other ones. And he could also be the 10th Indian to score a test match 100 at Lords. That's also something to watch out for. Because I was seeing on Cricket Info these two specifically stats that you brought up with Gavaskar and with Bradman, and then I
Mm-hmm.
was seeing about 5 or 6 more, and it was just ridiculous the type of pace he's on, and the fact that there's a real chance he could score 1,000 runs in a Test series in England. I mean, that's video game numbers, so it's
True.
incredible.
So, well, I'm sure if he keeps scoring, obviously not at this pace, but if he keeps scoring consistently, we'll try to add to the Shubman Gill watch and we'll pull up more and more records. Hopefully he keeps breaking more and more so we make this page really, really long. Without further ado, let's go to the predictions page. Um, you are new to the predictions page for this series. Let me recap. I'm 0 for 2, eating crow, but my series prediction is looking pretty good, even though each individual test is wrong. Ojesh series prediction also looking good, I have to say, pretty possible. So I want you to give me your third test prediction and series prediction, even though it's after the second test, which I denoted here. What do you think is going to happen the rest of the way?
Yep. So I'll say we're gonna win this test match. The reason being is that uh, yes, they have a little bit undercooked, but could be dangerous Archer back. But those two guys that took wickets in England in tests for God knows how many years, Broad and Anderson are gone, and we have Bumrah back. And I think with these conditions, as we talked about before in the podcast, and I think we'll get enough batting support where I'd be surprised honestly if either team scores around 300 or definitely like 350 and all those scores you've been saying. I don't think we're going to see that, and so I think we're going to win this test match by about 80-85 runs in the end. And in terms of the series, I know I did say 5-0 or 4-0. Uh, so I'm already wrong about that. I'll eat crow for that. But at the same time, in my defense, I wasn't expecting the pitches to be just absolutely flat and like a road those first two test matches. And I think um, this test match and potentially others down the road will favor our strength, which is our bowling. And so I'll say my final series prediction, we will win the series 3-2.
3-2. Okay. I like that. I like that. I like that a lot, actually. Um, I am going to these two Reds are really scaring me because I feel good about us, but I don't want to pick us and be wrong. But I'm going to cautiously be optimistic and say we're going to win this third test. And a lot of the reasons are what you said already. I think Bumrah coming back is a bigger plus for us than Archer coming back for them. I think more of our bowlers are in form. I think that if the pitch is more spicy in a weird way, it could actually help us because a lot of their batters score so fast. And even when the target is 600, they tried to score quickly and got out. So if there's assistance for the bowlers and they try to score quickly, I think we can bowl them out cheaply. It's just a question of if our batters can dig in on moving wicket and score enough runs, which has been a problem for us in the past. But now we have two tests worth of batting success to give us that confidence. So I think the batters can do enough. I think the bowlers can take us home. So I'll say that we're going to win this test. And hopefully your series prediction is correct because I actually do really like that a lot from this point forward, but only time will tell. Regardless, I'm so excited for the Lord's test. It just has that like uniqueness about it. The fact that it's going on with Wimbledon together is just like it just feels like a peak of sporting summers. I know a lot of the memories we've had of Wimbledon and cricket in England 2019 World Cup final day
Started
was
like this
very memorable.
2019. Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Even though it wasn't
So
with India, but still, World Cup was going on
still,
that same time, and the final was incredible. And that was also at Lords too. And so
yep,
it just it all adds to the flavor. So
yep,
I'm
yep.
excited about it. And I would say, going back to one person we were talking about earlier, I think NKR. I believe in him. I don't know why. I saw that innings. I saw he played in Australia, and I understand he struggled these first two Test matches, but I think we should keep an eye out for him. We're assuming he's in the team. I think he can make a real contribution and
Me too.
maybe score a century. Who knows? Like he
Me
did,
too.
in Australia in one of those Test matches. And
Yep.
I believe in his batting ability, and I think this is the right time to buy it low in terms of stock wise for him. So
I
I
agree.
just wanted to point out that X factor. But yeah, I think 3-2, we win this Test match, and then we'll see how it goes.
Yes, sir.
Now,
I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Deepak, thank you for joining us on the third test match preview. Jai Hind, brother. Let's do this.
stay in. Let's go. Let's get it.
Peace, bro.
Peace, man.